Hello, and welcome to the Builder's License Training Institute lesson on attic access construction. I'm Roger Peck. I'll be your instructor today. At the end of this lesson, you should know the minimum dimensions of an attic access, the minimum headroom clearance at the point of entry, above the access, the purpose of the sides of the access walls. You should understand there's many ways to build a legal and serviceable access as there are carpenters. There's as many right ways as there are wrong ways. Let's climb a ladder and build an access. The minimum size of an attic access is 22 inches by 30 inches. I'm in a very large closet. I have a very large attic area. It's going to be very simple for me to achieve the access minimums required by code. Measuring for the access, I need to put some blocking in that's going to support the sidewall structure. We're going to use 2x4s and some scrap OSB plywood. At this stage in most framing jobs, and this is new construction, you're going to have a lot of spare scrap material laying around. I think it's a good idea to use it up. There's nothing structural about this component we're going to build today. It's simply built to keep the insulation that'll be blown in this attic area from falling into the access hole itself. It's not going to do anything other than provide a serviceable point of entry or egress from the access. We're measuring the opening, and I have 22.5 inches between the bottom cords of the truss. And the reason I'm writing this down is I have to go cut some blocks, some blocking that's going to go between these bottom cords, and I'm going to, on the sides of that blocking, I'm going to affix some plywood walls for the attic access. The plywood, again, is only going to be there to prevent the loose fill insulation from falling down into the attic access itself. So my rough opening inside my closet dimensions is actually 37.25 inches. Easily meet the minimum 30 inches that I'm required to have for the attic access point of entry. So I'm going to make this one probably about 22.5 by 32. That'll satisfy any inspector. Let's go downstairs. We're going to measure this piece of 2x4. It's going to go between the bottom cord at either end of the attic access. And remember, we measured it upstairs. They were 22.5 inches is what we want to cut these. Safety first. We're also going to cut 4 vertical pieces that are going to tie the corners together of the OSB plywood. Let's rip some plywood. I've already set the fence at 20 inches on our table saw. Cut our end pieces of the OSB. Let's go frame an access. It's going to take a few trips, but I'm going to stage my material in the area that I'm going to work. Truss components, let's talk about that for a second. Bottom chord of a truss runs typically bearing wall to bearing wall. There's different configurations with trusses. They are an engineered component, so really they can be designed to suit any need. This is the bottom chord. Webbing runs all the way from the bottom chord all the way up to the top chord. In this case, it actually runs to the ridge. So the truss components, you have a top chord, you have a bottom chord, and you have webbing. A couple of marks for layout. They're 32 inches inside. Okay, other side. I'm going to give myself a mark to line up the plywood on the outside of my framing. The owner gave me a special request that I put the plywood on the outside of the opening, actually, so that he could use this edge as a kind of a foot ledger when he got up into the attic at a later date, if he decided to use this area for storage or something along those lines. You need to remember, there's not really a set or absolute perfect way to build one of these. You need to accommodate the minimum access requirements. Remember these pieces, these are these little vertical components that are going to stand on the top of that bottom chord. And we're going to stitch the corner together. I'm going to staple through the OSB plywood here into the piece of 2x4, and I'm going to staple through the OSB over here into the 2x4, and it's just going to make that corner nice and rigid. We're basically building a box. One thing that we have to do here, because we're framing this on the outside of the cords of the truss, I'm going to have to notch the bottom edges of my end plywood to go around this bottom cord of the truss. So we're going to run down to the saw and we're going to knock that out right now. Okay, we're back downstairs. I didn't bring a skill saw with me today, or a circular saw. So I'm going to use a table saw just to cut these corners out of my pieces of plywood. As you can see, I've notched the ends of my plywood, and that's going to sit over top of the bottom cord, just like so. I'm going to raise them up a little bit, clean it up, and that's going to make a box that we're going to keep the insulation from spilling into the attic access. This has been a simple lesson brought to you by the Builders License Training Institute. Now you know one way to frame an attic access. Remember, there's more than one way to accommodate the requirement. You should know the minimum dimensions. 22 by 30 is the minimum size access. You should know the minimum clear headroom at some point above the access. In this case, we have way more than the minimum of 30 inches required. You should know the minimum size attic space requiring access, which is 30 square feet of attic area at any time is going to require an access. So if you have a small Cape Cod, for example, with small dormers with cut-up attic spaces, you might be under 30 square feet of area. You wouldn't have to build one of these to access that part of the house. For all your builder's licensing and continued education needs, please call us at 1-800-727-7104. My name is Roger Peck. On behalf of the Builders License Training Institute, thanks for participating. Have a good day.